Salah City High School just won the football championship, and Adam Sanders is celebrated as the winning quarterback and homecoming king. But when asked in the post game locker room if he was going to be at Chelsea's party to celebrate tonight, he lets them know that he won't be able to make it as his mom is pissed that he didn't clean the attic last week. So, as soon as he gets home, he immediately gets to cleaning it. But while cleaning, he notices a glow coming from one of the boxes, only to open it and find what he calls a lame superhero costume that he definitely will be wearing to Chelsea's costume party next week. But when he puts it on, he feels a sudden urge of power and receives memories of events that aren't his own but of his grandfather, who was an ESP. The suit then starts playing a recorded projection of his grandfather that he recorded when Adam was born, and if he's seeing this message, then he finally found the suit. And to explain what the suit is, he'll start at the beginning. Decades ago, after the news broke worldwide about the atomic bomb, the Atomic Institute gathered together its scientists to inform them of their new mission of using atomic power for the greater good of all people, regardless of race, religion, or nationality, stressing that the secret of atomic power must never fall into the greedy hands of evil minds. Elsewhere in the penthouse of Mr. Twist, his henchmen give him a report on some of the staff working at the Atomic Research Institute. He commends them and gives them another mission, to simply plant this flower on the person he instructs them. So the next day, while Barry, a scientist at the Atomic Institute, is on his way to work, Fingers, who is one of Mr. Twist's henchmen, bumps into him, putting the flower in his lapel. But Barry doesn't notice and goes about his day following standard procedure and studying the secret atomic formula. As he leaves from work, one of his colleagues compliments the flower in his lapel, which confuses Barry as he never saw it before and actually has no idea how it got there, and chucks it up to him just being absent-minded as he is very focused on the atomic formula. But while they are talking, Fingers bumps into Barry again, which really pisses Barry off this time. But his friend notices that the flower was gone. Barry, however, sees it as not being important and tells her to not worry about it. Fingers took the flower back to Mr. Twist, who is very pleased with the men and gives them some new instructions. Kidnap Barry and bring him to meet Mr. Twist at his penthouse. Mr. Twist gives Barry an offer of fame, wealth, and power if he accepts to operate his atomic power plant, as Mr. Twist got his hands on the secret formula. But Barry denies and calls him bluff until Mr. Twist shows him the exact formula. So now Barry is completely confused and tries to figure out which one of his co-workers could be a traitor. But Mr. Twist shows him that it was none other than himself, as a flower that Fingers planted and retrieved from his lapel had a secret camera and took all the relevant pictures needed to replicate the formula. So Mr. Twist gives Barry two options: work for him or be blackmailed. But Barry stands firm on his no, which leads to the third option. Mr. Twist's henchman pitches him over the penthouse balcony and begin to plot who is going to be the next person they will kidnap from the Atomic Institute. However, to Barry's surprise, he landed perfectly on his feet and immediately began to think he was dreaming. So he puts his theory to the test by kicking the nearest fire hydrant and completely sending the top of it flying. Then, while trying to put the cap back onto it, he discovers that he had enough strength to weld it back in place. Pondering on what could have caused this, he heads to his lab and discovers that he can explode atoms, giving him atomic power. But even though he is excited about his newfound power, the thought of someone using it for evil, especially people like Mr. Twist, will certainly yield horrifying results. So he spends the night coming up with a costume and heads to Mr. Twist's penthouse, who has now kidnapped one of Barry's co-workers, offering her a similar deal to Barry. Only this time, option 2 is to get acid poured on a beautiful face. But Barry flies in just in time, stopping Mr. Twist and demands that he hands over the atomic formula. Mr. Twist points Barry to the penthouse safe and immediately tries to flee with his men. But the safe was rigged with explosives, triggering as soon as Barry opened it. Thinking fast, he was able to grab the recording and the woman that Mr. Twist kidnapped. But Mr. Twist wasn't going to let them go so easily. He had his men open fire from the aircraft on Barry, but Barry is able to take it down, resulting in fate leaning a strange twist to the career of Mr. Twist. Barry gets the woman to safety and vows that he will always be near whenever the rights of men are in danger. Back at the attic, Adam is ecstatic on what he just heard and wondered why he never heard of Atoman before, and a hologram expresses Barry's regret of allowing himself to be exploited by the well-meaning government along with the Friends of America. Most of the time was spent helping the war efforts against the Nazis, but after the last mission of liberating the Jews being held at Auschwitz, Squad decided to retire because of the horror and evil they encountered on the missions, to which the decision led to the news discrediting them from their achievements and created cover stories instead. The entire story Adam received earlier from the hologram was nothing but propaganda, but it was important for Adam to know if he were to don the costume and the Atoman name. Adam at this point is now completely connected to the suit as it recognizes DNA and has merged with him, with the hologram informing him that the suit will respond to his thoughts and to speak to Man of War as he knows everything before the hologram disappears. Immediately after, Grok and Man of War emerge out of a portal, telling Adam to come with them as they have a lot to tell him. And with that, let's put Atoman issue 0 on our Christian fiction judgment scale. For the story, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. In case you may have not been aware, Atoman is a public domain superhero whose initial comic came out in 1946. According to the message from the author's note at the beginning of the comic and from our podcast interview on the Kiddushin Initiative podcast with the author himself, Bill Robb, which if you haven't checked it out, be sure to check out, he said this.
We have a couple that were Golden Age characters in the 40s and 50s, and a lot of those people didn't keep up the copyrights because at that time, who thought they'd be worth anything? So a lot of these characters are available. And when I was a kid, I used to get the Overstreet price guide and see all these Golden Age covers, and I was just like fascinated by these goofy, colorful characters. So as one of the first things I wanted to do was bring back some of those characters that I loved and kind of incorporate them into, what we're doing.
Yep, he incorporated the reprint into the story of the comic and the characters into the Remnant universe, which I think is pretty cool. I really like the direction and how he repurposes some of the public domain heroes into his story. I have seen the attic scene of Adam finding the suit a couple of times now, but to see what actually happens there continues to add depth to the Remnant universe and flesh out some of the character backstory. My only nitpick will be the recording. That recording quickly became sentient and started answering different questions immediately right after. And it was something that threw me off a bit when I read it, but then again, that's just a nitpick. That's not, I don't know. Can I really critique that? For me, it feels like a nitpick. It's a nitpick for me. When it comes to artwork and creativity, it's a 3.5 out of 5 on our scale. Majority of the comic was a restoration scan of the original from 1946 by Jerry Robinson and Ken Crossan. I believe I said those names right. I think it's Ken Crossan. There, however, was some speech bubbles that were completely unreadable in the PDF that I got, but I respect Bill's initiative of restoring some of these public domain comics and incorporating them into his stories, which is something I really can't knock or complain about, to be honest. When it comes to theological basis, which refers to how well Christian principles, theology, and scripture are adapted in a piece of Christian fictional work, I'll give it a nothing out of 5 and omit the category, as this was another one of the Remnant issues that had nothing really theological to point out. Though the last time I said that about a Remnant comic that I thought had nothing theological to point out, I did forget that the Antichrist sacrificed a man at the very end of the comic. So yeah, there's that. So do let me know. Lastly, my enjoyment and how likely I am to recommend it is a 3 out of 5. Another awesome comic to add to the 27 issue collection of the Remnant, and it was a good read. It's not a reread for me personally, but I really like the initiative that Bill is taking on restoring public domain comics, because I'm 22 and really and truly I don't go back and read comics from that old, mainly read comics post 2000 or key Marvel comics and stuff like that, key runs for Marvel. I don't back to those days. I hope I don't offend anyone by saying that. So comics like the 1940s and stuff, I had no idea on most of those characters. So to see it in like this and then repurposed in the Remnant, I think it's pretty cool and it's worth a read. So overall, Atoman issue 0 gets a 3.17 out of 5 from the Xplanations. Let me know what you think of the comics based on what was discussed in the comments below. Do you agree with me or do you have a different take than I do? Link to purchase the comic would be in the description. If you enjoyed the video, then why not consider leaving a like on it and subscribing for more reviews and coverage of comics made by professing believers. If you enjoyed the video to the point you want to check out another one on the channel, then be sure to click the card at the top right hand corner of the screen to check out our other Remnant reviews, or check out the time Atoman and 2 other young heroes tried to be a part of the superhero group that was assembled by God to combat the premature rise of the Antichrist, the Remnant.